Record. Okay, and now take off.
You better on mic then as well, yeah.
Take off the phones. Yes. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
All right, you are now on speakerphone.
Hey, Brian, just syncing up. Last one for a while. You'll be pleased to hear.
Thanks as always, Brian. Appreciate it, man. Okay, I'll plug back in. Now that I know that you're in a foul mood, I'm really eager to change the color of this horrendous, blindingly white document we're looking at.
Well, please don't do that.
Give me a migraine.
Help. Don't do that. There's no call for a beige document ever.
You're just not aesthetic, Philip.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's why it's not beige. Right. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, welcome to episode 84 of the Tokyo Jazz Joints podcast. If you are listening in real time, this will be the last episode for a little while. We're going to go on a short hiatus, largely because I'll be in Japan, so we'll be gathering more stories and I'll be taking more pictures. If you're listening to this in 2026, please ignore this message because there should presumably be another episode immediately available. Assuming that the world still exists and podcasting platforms have not also fallen into some sort of nuclear apocalypse that we seem to be heading for. Anyway, on that cheery note, James, how are you this week?
Well, I was doing a lot better before the intro there, but I had a rather nice day here in the rough and gritty streets. It was sunny, It was warm, and I just before we got on here, I cracked a Guinness, got some more Guinness cheese. That was a big hit. By the way, a lot of listeners contacted me about the Guinness cheese.
Oh, well, I'm sure.
And actually, Philip, I was looking through. Yeah, I was looking through. Arbin magazine, which I think a lot of people who are familiar with Japan know it's a famous music magazine, because somebody had asked me about, what's with the upcoming, summer season for jazz festivals and the various storito, as they call them here, the jazz streets. And it's just every time it blows my mind. It's just so much more than I even remembered. It seems like there's more now in more and more obscure places as well. So I counted just April, May, and June. More than 25 separate, jazz festivals of various sizes. Yes, just further evidence.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same worldwide. I mean, like if you're on social media, you'll know there's just like an infinite number of jazz festivals being advertised to you. Like it's crazy. I mean, it's so weird many.
Because still you get this cycle of jazz is dead, and these articles that refer back to the golden era. You know what I mean? And it's such lazy journalism. I can't stand it. But it's just really kind of inspiring to see. And not even, like you said, not even just Japan. I mean, I was having a look at a bunch of Southeast Asian countries and what the jazz scenes were like there for a little upcoming journey. And much more plentiful than it used to be. So I'm feeling great. Sorry that you're having a bit of a grumpy one, but I am feeling fantastic.
Well, I'm sure it'll pass after this sizzling chat. We're going to start with this is kind of a bit of a wrap-up episode. We've been through various adventures over the last couple of years that we've documented in the last sort of, I guess, 15, 20 episodes at least. And this is just a kind of a postscript, I suppose, because obviously there are places, with the exception of the one that we're just about to talk about, where it's quite nice just to go back, and I do find it I find it relaxing, I think, in some cases where you can go to a place that you photographed and you kind of know, and there's no pressure in that sense. You can just actually sit and really relax and enjoy the space. And even though some of these trips are quite intense in terms of time management, it's nice to have the opportunity just to pop into a couple of places. So we're going to focus on 3 places in my old neighborhood of Shimokita, which I'm sure some of you may or may not know as being kind of what used to be quite a bohemian and sort of down at heel in a good way kind of neighborhood. There was a lot of off-Broadway type theater productions. There was a punk scene, very artistic kind of place. It's maybe not quite what it used to be. There was a lot more families as well that lived around the main station area. So it got
Philip,
increasingly expensive.
You do know that it was voted the number 2, in quotation marks, coolest, close quotes, neighborhood in the world by CNN Travel. So...
Well, it was actually number 1 in Vogue a few years back. So
even better.
Yeah.
Vogue.
So it's very much on the guidebook map.
A lot of Vogue readers hanging out in Shimokita. Yeah.
Yeah. As a result, you see increasing numbers of secondhand clothes shops, pet shops. It's still got like a certain charm, but they've definitely gentrified a lot of it, particularly around the station area. But
and I think, like, as we talked about a lot, urban Japan is so much harder to gentrify because of the sheer density and the sheer number of buildings and shops within one building. Like a neighborhood like where I come from in Brooklyn, the shops are bigger, they're more spread out. A neighborhood can change pretty quickly, with the influx of some new businesses, but that doesn't happen very, very quickly in Japan. So like you said, like you go to Shimokita and you'll still find a lot of the old sort of joints on the back alleys, like giving it that character. And so, it's not as if it's like not worth going to anymore.
No, but I mean, I think, Japan's not a sentimental place when it comes to buildings. So, they don't mind just knocking them down and building new ones.
R.I.P. Charmant.
This place actually talking again of gentrification and Instagram and all this kind of phenomenon of things being constantly pushed to you online through the algorithms. This is a place that you may have come across. If you haven't been to Japan yet, you may have come across this kind of secret hidden jazz bar. And one of the reasons it's not really hidden, but it's entered kind of rather in a rather novelty way, where you actually go up a staircase or up in the elevator, and then you open the elevator doors open, and there's what looks like an old style kind of vending machine. And actually you pull back this door and it opens up into this beautiful little jazz bar called No Room for Squares. So if you didn't know what you were looking for, or you're not inclined to just trying to open the random doors of fridges and vending machines, you would probably not necessarily find it. And actually, funny enough, just looking back at the pictures that I took on the downstairs on the, you referenced the building with a lot of units in it. Well, often a lot of these Japanese buildings have a kind of a guide with the different floors, and it tells you what's on each floor. And actually, interestingly, on No Room for Squares, I don't know if you remember them. You maybe didn't have them. I'm sure you had them as well. These label makers that used to make with a little bit of tape.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Yeah. So actually, downstairs, just on the sign outside, it just says he's just made one with that, which just says, well, funny enough, it doesn't say No Room for Squares. It says No Room for Suarez, because he's left off the queue. Now I don't know if his label maker was broken, or he's a Suarez fan. Maybe he's a football guy. I don't know. But either way, it says No Room for Suarez.
That's funny, because that must have been recent. I've not been up to No Room for Squares for a couple years, but I do remember when I went, going up the steps, and as you mentioned with the door, immediately kind of think, when you open it up in that first view of the place, right? And immediately thinking like, oh, okay, this is why everything you read about it in both English and Japanese always uses the word saloon or speakeasy. And that's definitely an apt one. I mean, it can be overplayed sometimes with a lot of bars, I think, that you know what I mean, that you hear about, but it does have that kind of like, because it is easy to miss. You could be looking for it and completely not find it amidst the jumble of Shimokitazawa.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's you need to know what you're looking for sure. I mean, obviously, I knew that area reasonably well, so it wasn't too hard to track down. But it'll be an interesting contrast, because you went in, I think, in 2019, and then obviously I went in 2024. And in the midst of this, you had COVID, which, really kicked off, I suppose, in earnest in 2020. So probably the worst time you could possibly open a business, particularly this kind of business where it's just, social, depends on people coming in person and so on and so forth. And actually when he said to me, I just have a note here where his name is Nakada, is the owner, and I think he was saying that he's a sax player, and he played sax in New York City for like 2 years, but he basically said yatto, business is better, just meaning like finally. So I think at this point in 2024 he was kind of finally breaking even and sort of had got through the worst of the effects of the pandemic.
I was thinking of that. So you were right. No, it did open in 2019, but I did not make it in time because I was going to go, right. And then when COVID hit, so I actually went in 2021, and but I remember thinking, because Nakata-san's a veteran player, he knows a lot of musicians all around the country, internationally too. That's why there's always like really good gigs there. But my thoughts were, okay, again, like you said, worst time to open a business, and also Shimokita, a popular neighborhood, it's not going to be that cheap, even if the place is not that big, So I don't know how many years we're going to have it, but here we are 4 or 5 years after that. And I mean, it's one of the most, I would say, lively, no, that's the wrong word, the most active small live joints, because there are gigs there very regularly with a lot of like well-known local and international musicians. So he certainly got over the hump that way.
Yeah. I mean, well, he's a very Genki guy. Like, he's very upbeat. He's very smartly dressed. And when we came in, he was very, very welcoming, spoke in English, and not something you necessarily get in a lot of jazz places, but there was no menu really. So he just said, when I asked for a menu, he said, well, you just tell me what you want to drink, which, if you have a go-to drink is easy, right? But like sometimes it kind of throws you, right? Particularly in Japan, because you're so used to having menus and like extensive menus. So, and this kind of led to... Also,
Japan is not the land of like, just improvise and tell me what you want.
Just make it up as you go along.
That is just the antithesis of like a Japanese shop, especially a jazz bar. So like I could see, I bet you just pulled out one of your old like, a gin and tonic with a twist of lime and put some bitters in the side and one of these horrendous Philip waters.
Well, it led to this kind of like absolutely absurd scenario, because Julie and I went in and sat at the bar and got chatting to him, and then of course like this group of non-Japanese guys came in. I think they were French, and it just led to this like insane exchange, because he said to them, well, they said, what drinks do you have? Like, what's the, I won't do the accent, but like, what drinks do you have? Do you have a menu? He said, oh, no, just anything. So, like, in that situation, to me, like, you go, okay, gin and tonic, or you like, I have a whiskey sour, or like an old fashioned, or like, do you have any wine, or like, I'll have a beer. But like this table, for some reason, they're like, do you have any like passion fruit? The guy was like, no passion fruit.
Oh,
right?
Sorry.
Oh no, this is not a joke, right? I swear to God, this happened. And then they started going on about, and I can't remember exactly, but they were talking about lychee, right? But they were pronouncing it in a different way. So he was like, I don't know, like lychee. And of course, it didn't translate. So the guy was like, lychee. And this went back and forth. And of course, I'm at the bar just like biting my tongue, just wanting to go, lychee. He wants lychee, right? But like nothing, I couldn't intervene. So then in the end, it was like Googling, and it's like, lychee. Yeah. No, don't have any lychee. I was like, I mean, like who goes to like passion fruit and lychee? It's not like a tiki bar, right? Or some sort of like Hawaiian theme bar, or like Southeast Asian bar. Like, it's just a jazz place. Like, just order a regular drink, right?
Yeah.
First up.
That's fantastic.
It was absolutely absurd.
No, I completely can imagine that. And I can also but I could also understand their sort of perplexion by being like, well, you told us to order anything, so we assume that means anything.
Yeah, you must have it behind literally bar, anything, right? Like, what's the most obscure fruit you can think of? I'm surprised he wasn't pulling out jackfruit and like dragon fruit,
durian. Yeah. Oh, that's great. But also, like in a jazz, in a place that's clearly like, I mean, we know a lot of jazz bars have beautiful liquor menus, but it's not like when you go into a Japanese shot bar where there are 300 bottles behind the counter and pretty much they're going to get you what you need. You know what I mean? Like the menu is generally a little more limited. So that's, well, look, props to the Frenchmen. It's, you know.
Yeah, well, it was kind of an interesting thing because obviously because of this Instagram phenomenon, you know, being pushed there was quite a lot of non-Japanese there. And there was another incident which again I just thought was absolutely baffling because he was playing. So just to give a context, if you haven't been to No Room for Squares, like it's a long kind of bar shape. You go in, the bar runs along to your right. The speakers are down at the far end, and there's this beautiful kind of collage mural of Hank Mobley, and it just says "No Room for Squares." I mean, it's very dimly lit. It's
one
very
of Hank's greatest albums. So it's a little unusual name for a bar, but I loved it. As soon as I heard it, I was like, "Oh, Hank Mobley fan! It's great."
Yeah, I mean, it's just a gorgeous space. And, you know, it's quite, he has these kind of like 2 or 3, like quite industrial lights on the wall next to where he put up the record that he's playing. So you get this beautiful picture of the record that you're listening to with this industrial light and you're sitting there just having these drinks. And I mean, it's such a gorgeous space. But there were 2 other guys like sat at the bar, next to us, and they were chatting away. And then like out of the blue, one of them thinks, oh, I'm going to show my mate a video. So he starts playing this video, like with the sound on to his friend. And that was the point actually, which I thought was really interesting because Nakada was very like, you know, almost that kind of knowing sense of like, I know what like some people are like, I get the whole thing. I've lived in New York. So he kind of plays along with it and he's like, oh, you know, I'm the friendly host and all. But like when that video went off, he was like, in like a shot, he was like, no, you can't do that. Like turn that off. And the guy was like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, well, again, like, why do you need to be told this? Like, I mean, like, why do you come to a jazz bar to show videos on your phone at full volume to someone else? Like,
inexplicable.
It's just insane, right? It's like, why? Anyway, so it was kind of a real... Like it was one of those.
Oh, Philip, I'm just completely imagining your reaction to all this. Oh, it's just great.
Like, you're like, what? I mean,
hysterical. Yeah,
you're trying to enjoy the space, and it's like, why are you? Like,
I mean,
why
look,
are you doing this?
We touched on this, I think, 2 or 3 episodes ago, right? Where we were talking about sort of just, you know, the idea of like the basic common sense manners when you're going into one of these spaces that you've very likely, if you're a foreign tourist, your first time in Japan, you've never been in before. And it would just seem to us as people who do travel a bit, very common sense. You just, you know, keep yourself, try to keep the conversation low. Don't cause a fuss with ordering weird things. Definitely don't pull out. I mean, that just drives me. When I was in the States, man, that was just making me insane. I felt like a grumpy old man. But I mean,
the videos people playing videos.
Yeah, no, but like
no headphones.
People play no headphones, but they're all playing them at the same time. So it's just jumbled noise, and you're just like, I mean, what's going on here?
No, it's maddening. It's maddening.
And anyway, thus ends the Geritol segment of old jazz fans complain about modern society.
Just 2 people just complaining about stuff. Yeah, I mean, he played some great stuff too. Funny, like he played Hank Mobley. He played actually this album that I'd never seen by Teru Masahino, like quite an old one called Alone, Alone, Alone.
No, I don't know that.
And then he played this, which again, people who've listened to the podcast will know this Chico Freeman Spirit Sensitive album. And that's why I got the sense. I was like, this album's really following me. I think I'd bought it by that point, or maybe I hadn't quite bought it, but it was something also that the owner was playing in Mingus when we were down in Hiroshima. And it was just, you get the sense of like, once you are familiar or aware of this album, it's like all of a sudden you see it everywhere. You know, it's like when you're learning a language and you don't know a word, and then you learn this word and like suddenly then you're like, you hear this word all the time. You're like, how did I never hear this word before? But obviously because you didn't know it. And it's the same kind of thing with this album, which I tracked down on my final weekend and bought before leaving. But I just absolutely adore this album. So yeah, I mean, it was just such a nice experience to be in there. And he was just lovely. And kind of just as if it couldn't get any better. I mean, first of all, in terms of the connections, he also told us that he used to go to Eigakan in his school uniform and smoke. And he wasn't even into jazz. So he just went there there to smoke.
But amazing, we know from good old friend Yoshida-san that I don't think he'd be scolding anyone about smoking. So
and also, I don't think he was doing a lot of IDing people, right? Like I don't think he was taking a lot of.
But back then, I mean, especially right next to the university. But no, it's really great that you had that experience because I had. Okay, so I've been to Nell Squares 2 or 3 times, and I've never really had the chance. Although we know a lot of similar people, to sit down and talk with Nakata-san because he. Well, first of all, they've really increased, like there's a lot of live gigs there. It's like 3 or 4 times a week, right? So if you're going to go on a night, you've got to pick the night when there's nothing. He does have cafe time now, though. I think
he does,
It's like 2 o'clock, I think. So 2 to 6 you can go where they're going to be playing the records. But even then, like by the end of it, you've got like, musicians coming in, trying to start set up. Like it just never worked out that I could sit down and have the proper usual sort of like Tokyo Jazz Joints chat with him, So, but I know enough from the place and from a lot of people who either have played there or just people who go there regularly. But it does seem to be one of those ones, and I wonder, is it because it's in Shimokitazawa that you mentioned, like on social media and whatnot, like you see a lot of people posting on their Japan trip that they went there. I'm just guessing because there's been some better PR in English, and because of the neighborhood that it's just one of those places that's popped up. But I've seen it definitely disproportionately compared to a lot of other like clubs or kisas.
Yeah, I mean it was never in his business plan, I'm sure, but to use the language du jour, it's got that sort of Instagrammable element. I know element, particularly with the entrance. So I think that's probably why. And like you say, also the neighborhood, and it's a reasonably accessible place. But like before we left, so we got chatting, and then obviously asked to take some photos, and he was asking why, and then I explained about Tokyo Jazz Joints, which triggered something. He's like, "Oh, I've heard of that."
Nice.
So the next thing he went on and. He disappeared off to the end of the bar and he was on his phone, and he came back, and in the interim he'd basically gone online, found the book and bought it.
Oh,
and he showed me the thing. He's like, "Look, I just bought the book," and I was like, "No way!" It was like
you never
such
told
a
me
nice
touch. That's wonderful, man. That's fantastic.
So amazing place.
It is amazing place, and it's funny just to go back to the point because it's a good another professional segue here. Literally right around the corner.
Less professional when you say it, but anyway, go on.
Literally right around the corner, and I believe. Around the corner from one of your old apartments is another wonderful classic jazz bar, but way, way less visited for a number of different reasons. And that's Posey, Jazz House Posey, house being Haus, by the way, the German spelling. Isn't that where you used to live, right? Right across from there.
I lived right across from there, yeah, and had a few evenings in there. One in particular, I remember being with my good friend Tom and sort of shivering. Like the owner putting on like one of those 3-bar electric fires, setting it right by our feet because it was so cold in there.
Yes,
but Posey's it's a legendary space. I think 73. If you have the Tokyo Jazz Joints book, you'll have seen the beautiful sign that they have outside, the black and white sign with an illustration of Bill Evans on one side, and it's just a tiny little room. And we have talked about it, I think, on the podcast before, but I just thought when we were in this neighborhood, it might be kind of interesting just to revisit it, because I got back in, I think twice actually last year, but
because that was the first time. It was the first time you'd been there for quite a while, though, right? Because on the time when you came back after the long COVID break, and we met in Shimokita, and then we went by, but we didn't go in that night. I think they were closed that night. So I know it had been quite a long time until you'd visited. And in the interim, the Mama-san, Miso, very well-known lady in the whole jazz Kisa world here. She's basically retired, fully retired now. I think she's there, but she's not really there. You know what I mean? It's almost completely run by her daughter now.
Yeah.
And I got a mail. Maybe about a year or two ago, I think, where she got in touch and said like, "Oh, hey, like I've redone the website. It's all like new. It's got a new address as well. Can you update your English profile, for it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, brilliant. Of course." But I actually haven't been there because every time I've been down in Shimo, I've been near the station, near a place we're going to talk about shortly. So I'm curious to hear what was it packed when you went in? Did you have a good chance to catch up and get the scoop about what's going on, or what?
It was completely empty again, and the Misa-san's daughter was serving, and incredibly friendly, and obviously our friend Nick Dwyer is very good friends with them and seems to be in there a lot. And so, you know, they're very receptive to non-Japanese. They're very friendly. We spoke in Japanese, but, you know, if you don't know Posey, it's basically a very small, narrow black space with a little counter. And down
some
at
of
the end,
lowest stools you'll find in any
very low stools, and right down at the
yeah.
end of the room, there's a kind of an archway that takes you into to one of the narrowest toilets you'll ever go to in a jazz kisa, and there's a beautiful old, very worn photograph of Bill Evans hunched over the piano, and then all along the left hand side of the wall is these kind of, I think we've referenced them before, but these kind of boards that a lot of celebs will sign when they go to different shops or restaurants in Japan. And they are all famous jazz musicians that Misa-san has been to see overseas in most cases, and got them somehow managed to get almost every time to meet them and get them to sign something to hang up in Posey. And I mean, it's just incredible, some of the names that are there. And like I've got here in notes, went to so many gigs. There's just a handful. There's like Cuba, Kenya, Montreux, Copenhagen, New York City. I mean, it's just wild. Like, you're like, you know, she was off traveling to all these jazz gigs, and not only that, managed to sort of squeeze her way up to the front or get into backstage and get to meet these people and get these things signed. I mean, it's incredible how much traveling.
Yeah, that was something that jumped out to me when I visited the first couple times, because, I mean, we know obviously from the whole nature of this project the crazy dedication that Japanese jazz fans have, but a lot of people from her generation weren't necessarily getting abroad. I mean, okay, so for example, like going way back, remember Bitches Brew in Yokohama and Sugita-san, the photographer, but he was over there doing work as a photographer. And I'm talking about in the 60s, which is not when a lot of Japanese people were going abroad. So I've actually never gotten the full story for Misa-san. Like, was she doing this on her own? We know that she had a family, so maybe was there work involved? Because that's not a lot of things. I mean, usually it's more the opposite, like our dearly departed Natori-san in Bird 56, who literally never left Osaka. You know, remember when you asked me, you want to travel? He's like, oh, I'll watch it on YouTube. It's fine. You know, so a lot of our kisa and bar owner guys and women, because of the nature of the business and because it's not exactly the most profitable thing, aren't really jet setting everywhere. So I was always really curious how she did that.
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of that. I just remember we sort of chatted about it. The Billy Harper one stood out, and you know, there's just this incredible collection. I mean, it's really amazing. And Posey hasn't really changed. I mean, there's not. I mean, it's a nice clean space, but it's old. It's kind of, you know, never really had. It's still got a landline phone there, you know, sitting just behind the bar, and it just feels like, you know, stuck in time, in a good way. But just, you know, you wonder how long it will continue going. I mean, it seems to be kind of fairly well protected at the moment from that gentrification that we talked about at the start.
Well, it's a little farther. It's a little farther down, so it's a good 10-minute walk from the station. So I think it would be much less at risk, and you know, perhaps they own the building as well.
Yeah, and it's next to a lot of new buildings, so it's not like it's a whole area of much older buildings. So it's probably safe for now. I was asked what I wanted to listen to, and I asked for Billy Harper because we've been chatting about the signature. So she put on The Believer, which had definitely seen better days in terms of the crackle and the dirt on the record. But it was, again, just beautiful to be sitting in that space, just the two of us with the owner, and listening to that record. It was just fabulous, and again, just a nice opportunity to go back and just enjoy a space. I took a few pics as well, but principally just sitting there and enjoying. And I have this thing in my notes, which is funny because it feels like I've written just that things have come full circle, which I find really bizarre, because actually we got chatting again, and funny enough, she also then looked up Tokyo Jazz Joints and made a point of finding it, and actually has subsequently ordered the book because more recently, a friend of mine from Dublin who's currently there for a month in Shimokita just sent me a picture last week of the book in Posey, which I just thought was like a really nice thing. But more than that was that she was explaining that her mother had some sort of brain injury, and that she was still going strong and still walking and stuff, but it was obviously getting harder to go further distances. And so funny enough, Misa-san's daughter asked me for any kisa recommendations. I thought, how bizarre, that like you're in Posey, and then she's asking you for kind of recommendations. So I suggested a couple of places that weren't too far. And I noticed recently from Instagram that they had gone certainly up to Masako. She'd gone up to Masako with her mom and with Nick, and they were obviously I had suggested also Donato at the time, which was still open, because I thought that would be kind of an interesting experience and not too far. But I think possibly it's getting harder to get those kind of distances even within Tokyo. So Masako, for them to be walking up the street to Masako is just an amazing, and also again, of course, all female owners too. So like, what a lovely kind of connection. Oh yeah, full circle.
Exactly, completely. That's yeah, that's really great. I mean, and it also, well, first, Philip, I mean, we need to send you out and do some more sales work here. It sounds like you're having a major impact on the boosting the sales of the TJJ edition 1 and 2, or 2, I should say. 1's all gone, but I've still got.
Well, actually, 2's all gone as well, James. But anyway, keep up. It's in 3rd edition now for anyone listening. It's actually in 3rd edition, and that's nearly sold out. So I don't know where you've been the last year, but anyway, the book sells itself, James. The book sells itself, as you well know. But it's nice.
I've got a huge carton of it in my bedroom here. I need to get out there and hit the streets, because I could sell some of those. Now, yet again, another beautiful segue. You mentioned Masako, which is our 3rd joint today, and another Shimokita place. I think we've gone into detail about Masako many times, about the original joint, how they moved, how it's reopened and now run by the great Moeko-san from Minyo Crusaders. But I'm curious though, because so you mentioned about we were talking a lot about the social media stuff, but I don't see as many people going to Masako, and I'm wondering why that would be, because I always recommend it to everyone as being, maybe of the 3 places we've discussed, like the purest jazz kisa of them all. Like, it's only a jazz kisa. There's no live. There's not a late bar time. It's a small little square with all the seats facing the speakers and a huge record collection. And then I was thinking, well, the reason's probably pretty simple, is because it's so small and cramped. I know for a fact many people have said, oh, I went to go and get Masako, I couldn't get in, and I waited for like half an hour, and then we went somewhere else.
Yeah, I've had that experience actually.
Yeah. So that's definitely. Now we mentioned way back on, I think it was in the episodes 51 or 2, when you first came back after COVID. That was our first stop in. When you landed in Shibuya.
That's right. Yeah.
But that was when you had your very long and arduous journey that ended up being like 48 hours to get to Japan. So you're a little out of it. So this time I hope you had more time to sort of like chill and relax. I think you sent me a couple of very nice looking photos of your meal and drink with some record choices.
Yeah, I think I was in, it's one of the 2 trips last year, but one of them I was in quite briefly. I just wanted to go in, say hi and have a drink. And then, so it was one of the 2 trips. I can't remember which was which, but yeah, I mean, again, it's just a place, particularly if you're staying in that neighborhood, which I was. It's a place that's just unmissable. Moeko-san, lovely, friendly person, and it's just a nice. But you do have to time it correctly, because it can be that there's accused. I do remember there being an older guy in front of me who was very cross that he couldn't just walk in. He got really angry because he had to kind of wait. And so it just shows how popular it's been. But I mean, it's just such an interesting place, Masako, in and of itself, because a legendary place, reopened in a different location, smaller, with a lot of the original fittings and particularly the speakers and the records. But again, when you go, Moiko's always playing like new stuff as well. It's always done in the classic style. One side, then it gets changed. One side gets changed. And I'm fairly sure that all the staff are female. Like, I've never seen a male member of staff, right?
That's correct. And I think that, well, because as we've mentioned before, Moiko-san worked at the original Moscow, where I had met her many, many years ago. And I think that because Masako-san herself, who was a real legendary figure in the jazz kisa world, and who was a female business owner at a time in Japan when that was not exactly the easiest life. Let's just leave it that way. Okay, so she had to be tough, and I think she made it. She sort of made it a goal of hers to hire mostly female staff, and it's kind of cool to see that continued. I mean, it's not as, look, I mean, there are more. I think that if you were coming into this world for the first time and learning, thinking about Japan being very patriarchal, you'd probably think like, well, patriarchal plus the jazz world is very, very masculine world. There'll be no female owners at all, but we've went to dozen plus places where there are,
I think this is an exception almost to the other rule, in the sense that, like, it's very actively owned by a female owner. The staff are all female, and I have a note here that even in the bathroom there's a very clear sign about no peeing standing up. So really really putting the flag in the ground there for female staff and for female presence in the jazz kisa, which I think is fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And I think also what's interesting about Masako is, like, even from before, but even now, like, they still have the branding. They've always been a strong brand in terms of, like, jazz kisa. Everything has the Masako logo. And even when you go into the bathroom now, even the toilet roll has the little Masako stamp with the monkey on it. And
the chimpanzee. She's even got the matchbooks. And going back on that point, though, Philip, I can't remember exactly why we were doing this, but I remember I was asking her questions about exactly that topic about being a woman owner in the jazz world, and she'd mentioned something about how it kind of helped in the part of Shimokita where they are on the north. I think it's the north side of the station, because there are a lot of, like, small little, like, clothing boutiques and some other shops that are also ran by women around the same age, and so they have, like, a little bit of a community, and so they don't feel that sort of like, caution that you might have if you had a nighttime bar in the nighttime district, for example, where you're going to get a lot of obnoxious, drunk men being belligerent.
Yeah, and it has that template too, right? It was always a female owner. I mean, the name Masako is a female, it was a female name. And so it's always had that kind of more feminine identity. So it's amazing that it's continued that way. And it's just, again, really nicely run. Drinks are great. They have nice food. And it's always really quiet. Like, you just go in, and it's one of those places that you never, for whatever reason, and just that energy that she brings to it, like, you never... You know exactly where you are and how you should behave or something. It's just a kind of a stillness and a calmness about the whole place, and so many people coming in by themselves, sitting and just reading, and, like, it's this sort of dream in that sense, like you just can experience exactly, like you say, pure kisa, right? Which is what it is, right?
the pure kisa experience, and definitely, like, again, not the place to pull your videos out. So I don't think it would matter there anyway, because she pumps the music pretty loud there. I mean, it's
it's loud,
when she's got a heavy jazz album on now, you wouldn't be having any conversation either. But anyway, you know what? I'm going back. I'm actually this will be after this program is online. But next weekend is the bonus track record fair weekend in Shimokitazawa. So, and I know a bunch of the people selling there, including good friend Plainstone. So maybe I'll try to get down early and have a coffee at Moscow, hit to the record shops, and maybe hit Posey for a nightcap and make it a full Shimokita day.
Very jealous.
Great to catch up.
It's been a very self-indulgent episode in the sense that when I talk about these places, we're talking about them in the context of Tokyo Jazz joints, but also because they are literally Tokyo Jazz joints, but also it just makes me remember so fondly that neighborhood and many happy times that I had there. So
wait, before we go, breaking news.
Yeah, I know.
Breaking news. And we're staying in Shimokitazawa, actually. It's a big Shimokita themed day. A little bit sad news, though. A place that I think you and I only went once, but I had been maybe half a dozen times. A classic, Lady Jane in Shimokita, which was a bar, but also with a lot of live music. They just the other day closed on April 13th. And Philip, honestly, I was, like, really touched to see this photograph online. It was the last day, and there was a really long line outside the shop. of people coming to say goodbye to it, including apparently a couple famous actors who live in the neighborhood. They weren't names familiar to me, but I mean, you mentioned, Shimokita's got like a theater tradition. It's got a film sort of tradition in the 60s. So, it's the kind of place that people in the acting community would know. And they were interviewing them and they were saying like, oh, this was my go-to spot when I was younger to come listen to live jazz. And so it's a really emotional day for us to say goodbye to it. So, sad news there that Lady Jane is gone, but some good news as well. Yet again, another Chigusa update very quickly. Chigusa, no, they've not reopened, but they're doing a pop-up, the ever-popular pop-up jazz kisa in a department store in Yokohama. So you can go and see some of the records and the photographs and all of that. And word on the street is that don't hold your breath for them to reopen the full shop, but at least they haven't thrown everything into storage. So,
well, that's something at least, right?
Yeah. And biggest news of all, very happy news. Everybody who's a regular listener knows about the whole EigaCon adventure, and then, very sadly couldn't take it over, but great news. Just the other night on Tuesday, after a break of about, I think, a month, they have reopened. Arakawa-san, who was a regular customer there for many years, he is going to be the manager, and it's going to be a rotating group of 5 retired people who are going to come in and share running the place to keep it open, basically the same hours, from 4 p.m. Every day, closed on Mondays, Sunday and Mondays. So if you're in town and you want to see EigaCon version 2, they're not really changing anything. The photo I saw, they cleaned it up a little bit, which, to be honest, was well needed.
Necessary.
As we've talked about, but it's pretty much the EigaCon that we all love. And I'm going to make it up to go talk to Arakawa-san soon and get the full scoop. And then I'll have all that information probably before you even get here, Philip. So great news about EigaCon. I was so happy to hear that.
Hear, hear, and long may it continue. Well, look, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks for sticking with us over the last many months. I think we've both lost track. We do have a list of episodes and things, but it just stopping and starting and recording a few and taking a break and James being away and so on and so forth. But anyway, we appreciate you sticking with us. We're gradually approaching 100 episodes, which is kind of amazing. We're going to try to do like a top 10 episode, top 10 episodes. So 10 of those just to try and mark the 10th anniversary of the project. And then hopefully, towards maybe after the summer, we'll be back with some more stories, some more adventures, and some more new places that we visited,
3 weeks,
either together or separately.
3 weeks until you touch down. Is that right?
Don't think it's even that. Yeah. So I'll be seeing you soon enough, and I'll remember why we don't spend more time together once we reunite.
Going to be getting the blue bag and the earplugs for those long train rides ready to go.
Please, please. Look forward to it. Right, in the meantime, take it easy, enjoy yourself, and we'll talk
soon. To you soon, bud. Yep, bye-bye.